Want to hear a story? So 2022's D&D Direct, you probably remember it as the place where Wizards of the Coast announced one D&D. There would be no 6th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, but instead, D&D 5e would continue, revised and perfected. One D&D across the years. Beautiful. But there was another announcement, a big one that flew under the radar for some people, though it took about as much time as the one D&D announcement and was treated as just as important. The official Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop, which would be known as Sigil, or Sigil, as Matt Mercer would put it. This virtual tabletop would be an Unreal Engine. It would be 3D with gorgeous graphics and allow for connectivity across the world. People would be able to play D&D online, officially in D&D Beyond's state-endorsed ecosystem. This was all well and good. Both announcements were met with some trepidation, but I remember people being excited. Though that excitement would dull over the years. In case you haven't noticed, it's 2025, and where is this official Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop that was promised? It was supposed to be the big thing. At this point, we've gotten the core rulebooks for the 2024 revision, 1D&D, so the virtual tabletop is just conspicuously absent. Well, actually, it's not, because it released. It released a few weeks ago. I, and many others, had no idea that it came out. I learned from a Kotaku article about it. And then I was even more shocked to learn that 2 days ago, right after its release, Wizards of the Coast laid off 90% of the Sigil team. That is crazy, because that effectively puts this big announced virtual tabletop into maintenance mode. It's no longer a major part of D&D. It's relegated to the corner of D&D Beyond for forevermore, effectively forgotten and abandoned. So what happened? Why did this project fail? And also, more importantly, was it always doomed to fail in the first place? It's a long, sordid, and sad tale, but you guys are used to that here on Critical Failure, so without further ado, y'all, what the hell happened? Hey, I know the release of Sigil was incomplete and not really good, but do you know what is released in a complete, awesome, whole state that will actually help you out in life? Today's sponsor! Today's video partner is NordVPN, an incredible service to ensure that you stay safe while browsing the internet. Now guys, I unfortunately have been hacked before, and as a content creator on the internet, that is really terrifying. Your password is usually your first line of defense. However, I, like many people, didn't take it entirely seriously. And even if I did take it seriously, there are data breaches all the time that let people steal your password. NordVPN can help you with that. Their dark web monitor can give you alerts whenever your credentials appear on any sort of data harvesting site. And they can help you replace your passwords with much stronger ones to ensure that your data stays protected. Yes, NordVPN is a service that can help you to watch region lock content on Netflix by just changing the region that you're browsing the internet from, for example. But it also protects your data, and in a world that is getting way more dangerous on the cyber side, you don't want to miss out on a service like this. If you guys are nervous about trying something new, don't worry, NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can just try it. If you don't like it, you get all your cash back, no problem at all. There's literally no losing with NordVPN. So head down into the description down below or to the pinned comment where you will find a link to NordVPN. With my link, you get 4 bonus months on a 2-year plan. Again, no losing out here. Thank you so much to NordVPN for partnering with today's episode. As always, supporting those partners does support us. Without further ado, I'm going to get back to the tea. So rewind to before the D&D Direct. D&D has blown up during the pandemic, and a big reason why is virtual tabletops. These websites like Foundry or Tailspire and Roll20 is also there, I guess. They allow people to play D&D online from a distance, and this is awesome. A lot of them are very much accessible, customizable, and allow dungeon masters to forge their own stories right on their browser. But it was pretty surprising, at least to me, that Wizards of the Coast effectively had no skin in this game. There was no official D&D online tools. They worked with some of the third parties, but again, it was almost an entirely third-party space. Even D&D Beyond was a third-party product. At least, it started that way. See, D&D Beyond was bought by Wizards of the Coast, effectively meaning that they would be planting their flag in the online ecosystem. It was only a matter of time before an official virtual tabletop would follow. So, when Sigil was announced, it wasn't surprising, at least to me. However, a lot of questions still lingered in the minds of many. I mean, trust me, there were a lot of suspicions around Sigil in general. However, I'm getting to those in a second. But one of the big ones was something that I think Wizards of the Coast needed to urgently answer. Why would I switch over to this official virtual tabletop? I mean, because of the pandemic, a lot of people got used to using Roll20 and Foundry. Hell, besides the big names, a lot of small ankle-biter VTTs had risen up to join them. You got stuff like Shard Tabletop, Owlbear Rodeo, lots of smaller names also carving out their own niche. For such a niche spot in the industry, this was a very saturated market. So what would Wizards of the Coast do to make sure that they stand out amid all these third-party programs that people were already using? Well, in late 2022, early 2023, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro made their answer to the question of third-party programs very, very clear.
So it's just a nonsensical, greedy change. And if you want more information on it, again, this video goes into more detail about all.
Yeah, you won't be playing on third-party programs because many of them may no longer exist. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the open game license crisis of yore. The forbidden war over D&D's future and D&D's soul. If you guys don't know, the OGL is effectively what allows for third-party publishers and programs to monetize and be profitable in the way they are. It opens D&D as a license to be used in this way. And once that genie is out of the bottle, it's really hard to shove him back in. But Wizards of the Coast would try anyway, attempting to revise the OGL to make it much more restrictive. No doubt because they want to easily cut out some competition. However, like I said, genie's already out. So people lost their minds over this, and rightfully so. It became D&D's biggest controversy in years, possibly their biggest controversy of all time. In the end, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro would capitulate, returning the OGL to its original form and even strengthening it so this doesn't happen in the future. However, the damage was already done, as can be seen by the litany of channels spawned by this. Channels that seemingly only exist to jerk themselves off whenever D&D is trending on the platform currently known as Twitter. Obviously, because One D&D and the Sigil VTT were announced so close to this and no doubt played a part in this very, very hated announcement, their reputations were tarnished as well. The teams behind those products would now need to work to overcome an existing bad rap, which, I gotta say, man, the dude who works in crisis management is very, very, very hard to do. So how did the Sigil team rise to the occasion? Look, I played MMOs long before I played Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm used to upcoming big releases having lots of press conferences, lots of coverage, lots of showcases. Sigil didn't really get that. They were very much taking things slow. It appeared at the D&D Creator Summit, where they invited a bunch of content creators to try out this virtual tabletop. It also appeared at the later D&D Direct, which had its own showcase video, and hey, look at that! It's Black Shane! I would watch out, guys. He tells me there's a white iffy going around, and he's eating everyone's ass.
I've been busy today.
He already got to me. But anyway, he, along with other players, got a chance to review this closed alpha of the VTT. Kotaku wrote an article about that as well, and it piqued my interest a bit. there were definitely some praises of it, most notably the graphics. I mean, this is in Unreal Engine, meaning that it's probably gonna look good if you know what you're doing. And yeah, this looks good. The dynamic lighting is gorgeous. I love how it bounces off the minis. It looks excellent. I also heard a lot of accounts about how good it feels to play. That is something that's really hard to do in video games. The tactile experience of playing a game on either console or mouse and keyboard is extremely hard to master, extremely hard to quantify, and worst off, extremely hard to please for everyone. But most of the reviews I see for this particular product, they were positive. It's obviously something that is hard for me to experience as somebody who was not part of this closed testing, but again, those accounts seemed very positive. However, those were the primary praises I heard, and they did not do much to quell my already existing concerns, as well as the concerns of many other D&D fans. For starters, like I said, this thing is in Unreal Engine, and that's great. It makes it look amazing, but Unreal Engine is no joke. I'm not trying to say that Sigil, the D&D virtual tabletop, was going to be some kind of crazy benchmark like Elden Ring or modded Cyberpunk, but it's not nothing. It's still something that's going to be difficult for computers to run, especially in comparison to just in-browser apps like Foundry or Roll20. Look, when I play D&D with my group, we often bounce off to play video games, and unfortunately, we gotta leave some of our group behind, because not everyone has a PC that's good enough to run this stuff. And that is a concern for this Unreal Engine app. It is no doubt going to be more difficult to run than Foundry, which can run on my frickin' potato laptop. It closes off accessibility, not just on the tech side, but also just on the DMing side. I upload so much stuff to my virtual tabletop. Tokens, music, maps. The devs said it themselves. They're competing with the ability to just Google Tavern and then just upload it to a VTT. The 3D selling point of this tabletop effectively cuts off one of the things that makes stuff like Foundry so accessible. The ability to just put stuff in there. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you could upload stuff to this virtual tabletop, but you lose on the Unreal Engine aspect. You lose on that dynamic lighting. You lose on that gorgeous 3D terrain. Oh, this connects to another issue. They need to provide a ton of content for this VTT. If we're not going to be able to effectively upload our own stuff, they're going to need to create a very, very open sandbox for us to build it, Minecraft style, and I was not seeing that with the existing demos online. I saw a lot of tavern interiors, I saw a lot of cobblestone dungeons, and they looked excellent, but you could have the most gorgeous VTT of all time. If I can't play in all the environments I require as a game master, frankly, I don't give a shit. The ability for me to just pull a Chepeku map and put it where I need it is what is appealing about Dungeons & Dragons for me. Without that creativity, I don't care. And if I'm trapped in only a handful of pre-made assets, that sucks. And finally, the most damning thing for me, that Kotaku article had a great quote about how the developers talked like they were professors. They didn't really talk like game designers, which was appealing to the journalists. He had a lot of fun talking to them, and that's great. I'm sure the developers are really, really nice people. I'm not trying to hate on them by any means. But they weren't really talking about the game design portion of this virtual tabletop. Look, as a online game, D&D is not overtly complicated. All I need a VTT to do is act as an initiative tracker, act as something I can put my character sheets in, and act as something to track movement. That's it. But those are still things you need to worry about, and the actual experience of playing a round of combat is honestly not being talked about as much as I'd like it to. This is the core reason a VTT exists. Yes, it provides connectivity. Yes, it allows people to play across the world. I get those things. But I want to make sure that you guys actually care about the game aspect of the game that you're designing for. And I wasn't seeing that in any of the press talk. again, that's press stuff. I don't have a glimpse into the behind the scenes, so I kind of push those particular worries down, but I bring this up because those particular worries are going to be very, very important. So just wrapping this all up in a bow, Sigil had its benefits. It had its good points, but it had so many points of suspicion. And you guys have to remember, it's competing with so many already established virtual tabletops. Look, all the showcase videos looked good, but Sigil isn't like a movie or a video game. VTTs are mutually exclusive. I can play Helldivers 2, Destiny, Sonic the Hedgehog. I could play all those in one day and have a good time. But with a virtual tabletop, I'm kind of putting all my eggs in that basket. I use Foundry. I don't use anything else because Foundry is where my games are. I have no reason to go anywhere else. I dedicate my time to making sure all my assets are in Foundry. All my stuff is prepared in Foundry. When you pick a VTT, you kind of pick that lane and don't leave it. So Sigil needs to be exponentially better than everything else in order for me to justify that choice. It's not like something that can exist just alongside everything else in the ecosystem. It has to be better. It's a very competitive space. And with all these points of suspicion, I'm not seeing any reason why Sigil would win that horse race. But of course, I'd have to wait until it actually came out. And then it actually came out and I had no idea. Maybe I'm just stupid. And everyone knew this thing came out, but I saw zero chatter about it on D&D YouTube, which is a space I'm a part of. I saw very little press coverage, which is very concerning. There was no talk about this. It was crazy. And this is obviously not the completed product, or at least I hope it's not. I tried myself to log into Sigil, use my D&D Beyond account, but when I tried, it was down for maintenance, as it was for many, many, many others. Kotaku released a very, very scathing review of the virtual tabletop. Not Kotaku, it was Polygon. I'm an idiot. Calling it out for being incredibly underbaked. One of the big points of contention, lack of customization. Shit, this wasn't even a thing I was thinking of when reviewing the virtual tabletop, but a big part of D&D is your character and being able to represent your character with a mini. We already have the incredible Hero Forge, which is a very popular program to create and 3D print your own minis. You can even upload those into Tailspire, a different virtual tabletop that has gorgeous 3D graphics that has existed for years, by the way, only further pushing the question of why does Sigil even exist? But anyway, Sigil had to create a character creator that competed with Hero Forge. And during a lot of that press talk earlier, they didn't really talk about their mini creation system. Like, yeah, it came up, but it was not a main focus of any of the articles I read. And I'm starting to see why, because it's incredibly limited. If you're thinking that you're going to get the same amount of customization as you would get in Hero Forge, you will be disappointed. Hell, you don't even get to use all of the D&D species in the new 2024 Player's Handbook. You only get 6 of them, which is crazy for a release drop. On top of that, my fear of lack of pre-created assets to create your own environments, that's been realized. You are only able to be in very limited environments. Cobblestone dungeons, tavern interior. There's not a lot here. Yes, they look beautiful. Yes, the dynamic lighting is incredible, but this is so underbaked. Where is the rest of the environments? Like I said earlier, if I'm only stuck in these places, I don't care. This is effectively completely irrelevant to me as a dungeon master. I want to take my players to wondrous locations. I don't want to be stuck in Baldur's Gate 3 Act 1 the entire time. Oh, and hey, that thing about the gameplay not really being talked about? Yeah, I brought that up for a reason. I didn't think it would be a problem, but good God, this article had some scathing words to say, and I can't put it any better. Once players join a session, Sigil begins to crumble. Its general management of stats, abilities, and math is too variable and untrustworthy. The simple act of importing a D&D Beyond character leaves a bad first impression, with unclear steps as to how to couple such a character with Sigil minis, along with the glaring issue of various elements often not importing correctly. Important stuff like hit points, armor class, or even a character inventory often fail to import correctly, or import at all. These inconsistencies can make combat a bit of a circus. These are simple things that just don't work. Like I said, I just need the minis to move around the tabletop. I just need to be able to upload my character sheet. I just need to be able to track initiative. And apparently, those things do not work. So my question is still pending. Why would I use this? The question gets only worse when you realize that you still need a D&D Beyond subscription in order to use this damn thing. They did not finish cooking. It's very obvious. This is barely even a pre-alpha. It is so plainly unfinished, and I gotta wonder what has been worked on for the past 3 years. But I suppose it's pretty pointless to wonder, as, like I spoiled at the beginning of the video, we're in a Death of the Game episode here. Sigil was killed. 90% of the staff were laid off by Wizards of the Coast. You might be thinking, oh, well, there's still some people working on it, right? Well, those people are only there to finalize the last bits of content that they have for the virtual tabletop, maybe a few more terrain assets, hopefully some more character customization, and that's it. They're going to maintain it for the remainder of its life cycle, whatever that is, and it'll be relegated to a corner of D&D Beyond. A fun experiment you could jump on, but not anything anyone will be using. Overall, the reception to Sigil, to describe it as lukewarm would be generous. To describe it as hated would be generous. No one had a reception because no one even knew it came out. I think Wizards of the Coast knew this thing wasn't going to work. I think that became clear to them as time pushed on. And looking at their goals for Sigil, holy shit. I can see why it was so obvious they were going to fail. Who even sets goals like these, man? God, listen to this statement. We've concluded our aspirations for Sigil as a large, standalone game with a distinct monetization path will not be realized. My brother in Christ, what are you talking about? This reeks of a corpo who knows nothing about the appeal of virtual tabletops. Yes, Roll20 has a marketplace, but barely anyone really uses it. And at the core of it, Roll20 and all VTTs, their appeal is being able to just upload stuff yourself. If Sigil were to lock those features behind monetization, it would only further drive people away. You need to have a really solid framework in order for monetization to even be considered. Marvel Rivals, for example, as a live service game, dropped and succeeded the way it did, not because they perfected the art of the monetization, but also because they just made a good game. The team at NetEase has a fun multiplayer shooter on their hands, and therefore their monetization succeeds because people want to use it. You need to show people why Sigil, this virtual tabletop, is worth using in the first place. And oh my god, I can't believe I'm using a video game as my example when I just said virtual tabletops are not video games, which clearly this guy doesn't understand. A standalone game with a distinct monetization path. This guy craves a microtransaction store with minis and skins for those minis, additional race customization, maybe lock some classes in there too while you're at it. That is what I'm getting from this statement. And like I said earlier, unless you utterly prove that your product is worth using, all that stuff is off the table. And with the existence of better VTTs out there, with the existence of stuff like Tailspire, with the existence of stuff like Foundry, my question remains pending: why would I use this? If this was their goal for Sigil, to have a distinct monetization path in a standalone game, they were always going to fail. And maybe that's for the best. I mean, it's crazy that distinct monetization path is basically the first thing to come out of that exec's mouth. And yeah, I expect that from a scumbag corpo, but it shows what the priority was here. It wasn't to create a VTT, it was to create a microtransaction marketplace. And therefore, I think it's for the best that it died out. I'm still really sad for the developers, though. I read their interviews, and while I did not love every word that came out of their mouth, they seemed like good people, passionate people who liked what they were working on. They didn't deserve to lose their jobs over this crap. They were given bad orders, and they followed them to the best of their abilities. Sigil was doomed from the start. This damn game is rigged. But anyway, there you go, another episode of Critical Failure. Man, people just keep on giving me reasons to make these. I wanted to take another break this week, but here I am once more, back in the trenches. Not that I'm complaining, I love drama. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed, then you might enjoy our Dungeons & Dragons campaign, our new actual play taking place on the Foundry virtual tabletop. It is linked up in the cards. The finale will be coming out this Sunday, so look forward to that and get caught up while you can. But before you go, please leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own suggestions or thoughts, you can go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment spawn killed to let me know at the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.